Music theory and express stave notation. On the piano keyboard, the notes on this left side sound like frogs, and they're called the low notes. The notes on this right side sound like birds, and they're called the high notes. So if we go this way on the keys, we call it going up, and this way, going down. The black keys are in groups of 3 and 2, so we can easily find our way. A good place to begin is the middle of the 3 black keys, because the white keys between them are the musical alphabet. Here is A, B, C, D, E, F, G played in the middle register of the piano. These letters are repeated over and over to name all of the piano white keys. So these two are the beginning of the next register higher, and these ones are the end of the next register lower. You can see that these black keys marked represent the links between the different registers. Now, looking at the white keys, as you go from each note to the next, you might think they rise by the same amount, but in fact they don't. And you can see this by looking at the back of the keys. The distance from A to B is a larger step than from B to C. We call the larger step a tone or whole step, and the smaller one semitone, half tone, or half step. The white keys are written in traditional notation as notes on a staff or stave, and I've chosen the bass clef here because in the bass we do go from A to G. The notes are in the spaces or on the lines, and they rise uniformly, but they don't take into account the difference between the tones and the semitones. This is one of the problems with traditional music notation. The other problem is that the black keys have to be written as though they're alterations of the white key notes. For instance, this black key can be written and named as A sharp or B flat. But if we look at the piano keys, we see that all of the notes, whether black or white, in fact make a uniform set, each separated by a semitone. And if we listen to them, we can hear that it rises uniformly, and there's no difference between the black keys and the white keys. These 12 notes form the building blocks for all the standard styles of music that you'll hear today. Now we can separate the notes into the odd and the even sets, and then you get 2 scales, each of which the notes are a whole tone apart. Whole tone scales sound like this. The more familiar major scales can be described as being 3 notes from one set followed by 4 notes from the other whole tone set, and they sound like this. Let's move now to express stave notation. The express stave has 3 lines, and we start off by orientating them vertically so that we can see how they correspond to the piano keys. In express stave, the notes have the same colour as the key they represent. So these 3 black notes touch or cross the link line, and these 3 white notes touch across the D line, and so on. That was one of the whole tone scale sets, and they were sloping note heads. The other set has non-sloping note heads, and these either touch the line or are midway between the lines. You can see here how the notes change as we go from each note to the next. The shape alternates, and the note colour corresponds to the piano keys. Here are some of the notes played together to see how they fit. Now we can orientate this back in the normal way by putting the high notes up at the top and the low notes down at the bottom. Here's the full chromatic scale notated in express stave. It starts with A, that's the bottom note touching the bottom link, and you can see that the notes change their shape as we go from each one to the next. Here are just the white notes, and the semitones are very clearly distinguished because the note shape changes there between B and C, and between E and F. In Express Stave we can add a clef sign to indicate the register to play it in. Treble clef means the higher register, and bass clef the lower register, but the notes themselves are written the same in each clef. In fact, Express Stave is very close to the traditional bass clef sign. If we add in the missing lines here and here, we simply have the traditional bass clef. The treble clef, though, is a different area in traditional notation, and this again is one of the problems, that all the different clefs are read differently. Here's the opening of Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. You might like to try playing that riff reading from Express Stave notation. You might like to orient the stave vertically at first. Thanks for watching. This is John Keller.